What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Philly on PHLY. Philly with Jon Marks, as always, presented by Bet Parks. That's right. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites still for Thursday Night Football against the Commanders. How about this? Tonight, it's a back-to-back. The Cavs at the Wells Fargo Center, 10-point favorites over your 76ers. That's right. Remember to subscribe if you're watching live on YouTube this morning. Good morning. We have our Mad Chatters. So if you are listening to the podcast, as Tyler posts it every day, the audio podcast, awesome. You can always watch live on YouTube, get involved in the chat, or watch whenever you want to. Just hit that subscribe button, like, comment, etc. Also, all of our viewers on TV. That's right, as we're on Roku TV and Samsung Plus. Good morning to you. Or hello to you. 76ers lose last night. I'm considering laying like this right now. Let me see if I can do this. Just like on a psychiatrist's couch. And I've been to plenty of therapists in my life. That's what I need with this team right now. And it's not because of last night's game. It's not because of last night's game. I, of course, pie in the sky. Joel Embiid's coming back. He has a flair for the dramatic. He's going to play 35 minutes, and he's going to be great, and they'll beat the Knicks. And yeah, they hung in there. They were close at the half, and then the fourth quarter happened. Paul George looked good last night. Jared McCain's really good. He's one of the few positives that you take from the season so far. But the team's 2-8. Joel Embiid was rusty last night. Didn't look good. Understandable, hasn't played, blah, 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 blah. Devon's going to join us. Devon Givens is going to join us at about 20 minutes from now, at about 8:25 if you're watching live, to talk about all this. I don't even want to. I was talking to the guys before the show, talking to Andrew Frazier down there of Anthony's show, and he's like, Embiid only 13 points. I don't care what Embiid did last night. I really don't. Like, I guess you should expect some rust. He looked very rusty. He was out of sync. Offensively, he wasn't good. He was shot almost half of his shots were threes. They were front rim and they weren't falling. So, like, whatever. It's one loss. Here's the problem. The team's 2-8 with the Cavs coming into town, which, unless something miraculous happens, they're 10-point home underdogs, but I guess you never know. They could be starting the season 2-9. That's almost 14% of your season. And you're going to be 7 games under 500. Now, I think this ultimately will be a good team, but getting everybody back, Maxi's going to be out at least another week or two. But, like, at some point, the team is going to be cohesive. They're going to figure out their roles. Nick Nurse is going to figure out the combinations, and this will be a good team. But at that point, did you dig enough of a hole to where it's going to be tough to be a top 4 or a top 3 team in the East? I don't know. But I know this. This team's painful. This team's been painful all of training camp because of the injury and the Embiid stuff. And this team's been painful for the first 10 games of the season. And so let's get into the Embiid stuff because I'm so aggravated this morning. I am just painful, this team. And not a stab wound painful, not a sharp pain, but just this nagging, won't go away pain. That's what this team is right now. It has turned from a circus to a clown show to a donkey show, and it continues. So let's play Joel Embiid after the game last night. He's talking about how he feels and everything else. Here's Joel Embiid after the game last night.
Felt pretty good, health-wise. I think it's just by trusting myself. Thought I was a little timid, so I stuck with a lot of jumpers. Just to get myself a little comfortable. But as the game goes, I'm sure, just getting back to myself is going to be easier. It's all about confidence and trusting myself. Just a little timid, when it came to attacking. But I expected it. I just knew, push enough. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago when I talked to you guys. That's the mental hurdle that I gotta get to.
All right, well, you get the point. Yeah, like everything that you said right there. Although he wasn't injured, remember he wasn't injured. There was no actual injury. Yeah, like he's rusty. He doesn't have full confidence in his knee that wasn't injured. And like Totally understandable. But then you look at it, and I didn't even think about this yesterday. They have a back-to-back. And remember the second to last time, or now the third, but when Embiid spoke in training camp, and then he didn't talk for 28 days before he finally addressed the elephant in the room, which was his injury, he talked about how he's probably not, or he's not going to play in back-to-backs for the rest of his career. And I defended him at the time because it was probably reality. And I'll say it now, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Joel Embiid's never going to be healthy. You can start him up slow in the season. You be conservative in the approach with how you use him. You cannot use him in back-to-backs. There is no preservation for Joel Embiid's body and his knee to get him healthy during the playoffs. He's never going to be healthy. He's never going to be healthy. So when he said, I'm not going to be playing in back-to-backs, it's like, yeah, he probably shouldn't be playing in back-to-backs because he does have a bad knee. Should he have said it? Totally different story. Well, Barkley and Shaq launched into him before, and Shaq did last night at halftime, which will actually, you know what? Do you have the Shaq thing? Can we play the Shaq thing, and then we'll play Embiid talking about the back-to-backs? So, and I was annoyed at Shaq last night because Shaq during the half, it's a TNT game, so of course I want to hear what he has to say. So here's Shaquille O'Neal talking last night at halftime.
This was the fear I had for Joel Embiid. You announced arrogantly, I'm not playing back-to-backs, honey. I'm not injured, but I'm sore. I come in when I want to come back. Now, when you say things like that, you're supposed to come back with extra energy. 0 for 3, I'd have been 0 for 15. But you know what you ought to say? Hey, Shaq's not playing well, but he's playing aggressive. So the plan that they're having, it's not working. And not only that, I say this respectfully, Joel Embiid will never win a championship until he gets his mind and his attitude right.
Well, Shaq, you're probably right, or you could be right, and you're right. You would have finished 0 for 15, but Joel Embiid's not you. And I think that's part of the problem. He doesn't have Shaq's mentality. Joel Embiid has his mentality, which so far hasn't proven to be successful in the NBA. So let's go to Joel Embiid tonight. And even when he said it at halftime, it annoyed me because it's like, all right, I know you want him to go out there and run through a wall and throw up 20 shots. Shaq, if you were coming back from an injury, even if it was a knee injury, it's not the same as Joel Embiid. You're a different player. You had a different mentality. This guy is broken down, and mentally you have to wonder if he's ever really going to recover or he's even able to play the way that people want him to play. So here's Joel Embiid after the game. And this is where the subject of back-to-backs come up. Joel Embiid after the game. Like I said yesterday, I didn't realize that it's like, okay, well, they're going to be playing the Cavs. So if they lose to the Knicks tonight, the undefeated Cavs are coming into town. Here's Joel Embiid last night after the game talking about it all.
I mean, I want to. That's up to those guys. I mean, I know I said I will never play back-to-backs, but I'm a troll, so I'm sure at some point I'll play. But I feel good right now. We're going to see, but it's up to them.
You said it's up to them, but how much will you try to lobby to try to play?
I can do whatever I want, but obviously, ultimately, that's a decision. So just gonna leave it up to them, but yeah, I'll be pushing.
Great follow-up by Dave Uran, by the way. Shout out to my buddy Dave. All right, I'm on the couch again. Can you help me, Tyler?
So it's actually kind of funny that we're bringing Devon on today, because Devon and I, when we worked together down the radio station, we had things called we had sessions. When things were getting bad with the Sixers, we would have sessions. And a lot of our sessions revolved around Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid or James Harden, or, it'd be like a particular thing at a particular time, whatever the case may be. And they were basically, they were what they sounded like. They were venting sessions. They were prop your feet up on the couch and get your vent out.
A lot of times that's sports radio, man. You're right. A lot of times it is. I don't have anything left. I just want to watch good basketball. And I feel like that there is a lot of good talent on this team. We'll talk to Devon about that coming up in a second. But the fact that he went back-to-back, I'm not going to play back-to-backs, and now when he realizes, and it's actually, now you have to put it into practice, now he's going to push the play, and it's up to them, but he's going to push the play. And he's a troll. I know I said that, but I'm a troll. Can we stop being a troll, Joel Embiid? Can we start acting like a professional? Because you weren't being a troll. You were emotional. You were emotional because you knew the knee wasn't right. You were emotional because you knew you weren't going to be ready to start the season, and you were emotional. You're an emotional roller coaster. It's the kind of guy that he is. I don't want a troll. I want a professional. If you don't want to play back-to-backs or you don't think you can play back-to-backs, then and you say it, then the first instance that it comes up, you can't say, I'm going to push to play. What are you doing? You're a troll. The team's 2-8. They're faced with playing the best team in the NBA, an undefeated team tonight on a back-to-back. So it's obvious the question is going to be asked, are you going to push to play? The team's 2-8. What are you going to do? And his answer is, I'm a troll. What NBA superstar is talking about being a troll after a game with comments that he made a month or so ago with back-to-backs? We got the superstar in the NBA that is as talented as anybody I've ever seen in this city. As any player in any sport, Joel Embiid has that kind of talent for how big he is, the shooting touch, the athleticism, everything. But we got the superstar that is a troll. That is a troll. Awesome. And when Shaq says that unless he improves his mentality, that he's never going to win a championship, man, I hope Shaq's wrong. But certainly doesn't seem like it's going to be here. It certainly doesn't. All right, let's get to some headlines. Devon's going to join us coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. We'll discuss everything with him. But let's welcome in Tyler Zulli for headlines. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, good morning. What's going on? Let's talk about some headlines. We do have some stories to get to in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Glad Hair Restoration. Because Glad Hair isn't just about restoration. It's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change your hair. They change your life. And if you want to improve on how you look and how you feel, Glad Hair has the right treatment for you. Head on over to gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. All right, you talked about Joel Embiid, but there was an encompassing game around Embiid's return. The Sixers lose yesterday 111-99 to the New York Knicks. Embiid did finish with 13 points in 26 minutes, a 37% night shooting as a collective unit for the Sixers. Paul George leads the way with 29 points, probably his best all-around game as a Sixer so far, finished with a double-double. Jared McCain with another 23 points, and a guy who had the basketball in his hands late in the contest. It's very clear to me, John, that Nick Nurse trusts Jared McCain, and his confidence continues to grow. I know there's not a lot of excitement around a 2-8 basketball team right now with the fact that Embiid missed the first 9 games of the year. Maxi's been injured for a bulk of the season. Paul George is starting to return to form a little bit. Jared McCain might be the bright spot so far. It looks to me like the Sixers made a pretty darn good selection when they picked Jared McCain this year in the draft.
Yeah, and we talked about it prior to the season, and it didn't look like, I remember having a conversation whether he cracks the rotation or not, Jared McCain. It's like, well, they have veterans, Eric Gordon and some other guys. I don't know, especially to start the season if he's going to crack the rotation. Well, listen, with Maxey out, they need a gunner. They need somebody that can handle the ball, that can be kind of a higher volume shooter, and that's McCain, and he is not shy. And I like him a lot. They were on the broadcast last night. They were talking about how impressed they were with him. In particular, his legs and his ass. I don't know if you were watching the TNT broadcast, but they were saying the NBA body there is very stout. He's 6'3". We know Maxey isn't the biggest guard. So now you start to look, and it's what I was talking about in the opening there, which is there's still positives when you look forward to where this team can be. So they get help. They get Embiid back. Paul George gets off this weird minutes restriction that Nick Nurse is using with him. So now you're like, all right, well, we can see what this team looks like right now. And they have some pieces, and McCain's a big piece of that. So he was impressive last night. Paul George, I understand that you don't want to play him 40 minutes to start the season coming off the hyperextended knee, and I'm totally fine with that. It's just that, like, the way he's using him is weird. They were like, I don't think he checked back in the fourth quarter to like 7 or 8 minutes left in the game when they were already down by 12. The time to put him in was before that, when they were losing the game. Knicks went on a run to start the fourth quarter, and it felt like Nurse was very quick to put George out there. So I think he still had 32 minutes last night, but it just felt like that the way the minutes were divvied up, especially in the second half, were strange from Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse hasn't done a good job so far this year.
The rotation's been odd, and I know that he's been kind of up against it because of the fact that he has missed, there's been a handful of games already. Like we talked about Embiid, they've played 10 games. He's played 1, right? So he's missed 9 games. Tyrese Maxey now, I believe was this his 3rd straight game he missed or 4th straight game he missed? Whatever the number might be. Paul George missed a couple to start the year as well. You're talking about a pretty sizable amount of missed games from your 3 best players. So I understand your rotation gets a little bit out of whack when you're down that many guys. But I look at some of the rotations earlier in the year. Some nights he's using Kyle Lowry a ton. Some nights he's using Kyle Lowry, less. Yeah. Or let me rephrase it. I shouldn't say some nights, but like a bulk of time. He sat on the bench for a majority of, I believe, the second quarter, and then checked in and then played, I played the first 6 minutes, then missed a ton of time. I don't exactly know what the role of Jeff Doughton is yet. He's playing a good amount of minutes. He played 22 minutes last night, but had 0 points. Yeah. Andre Drummond and Yabusele, what's the backup 5 situation going to look like when Embiid does round into form and he is playing 35 minutes a night? I think it's difficult for a head coach to maneuver this many missing pieces, but I've not been in love with what he's done for the first 10 games so far. Even with that being said.
Imagine Jalen Hurts coming out and saying, like, he had said something earlier in the season and now he's already going back on it. He said, well, I'm a troll. Imagine Bryce Harper coming out and talking about he's a troll. Like, can we get over the troll stuff? It annoys me to no end. You're an adult. You're a man. We know that you have a son, right? Like, grow up with the troll stuff. Nobody cares about you being a troll. You care about being a troll. Nobody cares. This team hasn't been out of the second round of the freaking playoffs. They've been the one conference final since 1983, since they won a championship. One. And they bring in Paul George. And Joel Embiid's not ready to start the season because of injury. Fine. Maxey goes down with a hamstring injury. That sucks. We'll be okay. Oh, well, I'm a troll, so I don't know if I'm going to push to play on back-to-backs. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Go ahead. I like the Sixers. I can't stand covering the Sixers and following the Sixers. I can't stand it. It's almost, you know what? If this wasn't my job, it would make my life a lot better to not have to deal with this kind of crap.
Listen,
it really would.
I do believe that, and we've talked about this plenty. I do believe that this team will figure things out. They're too talented not to. They've started to dig themselves a little bit of a hole, and if they do lose tonight, they will be 2-9, and that's concerning for sure. But I do think that there's enough of a season left to play. Are they going to end up being a 2 or a 3 seed at this point? It would take a pretty good run, but there's still 60 some odd games left to play in the regular season. I think things could happen, but more likely than not, I do believe that this team is still going to find themselves in the playoff contention.
Oh,
they're just too talented not to. I understand your frustrations on the onset, but I also do think that when Joel Embiid does kind of round back into form, when Paul George is 100% healthy, when Tyrese Maxey returns, that will help them slot their rotation a little bit more. I know somebody in the chat said he's kind of in a no-win situation. It's not been great, but it will be. It should be better when those 3 guys are returned and 100%.
They'll be a good team.
You can kind of slot where you want to slot.
They'll find themselves at some point. They'll be a good team during the regular season. They could beat pretty much anybody. I'm not even denying that. They're like, are we going to sit here and say that this team's going to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals this year? It sucks. It's November 13th. And so far, staring down the barrel of 2-9 if you lose to the Cavs tonight. Anyway, let's finish up with some good stuff.
Let's finish up. We have the latest of the college football playoff bracket is out, and the top 4 seeds. No surprise right now, the 4 teams that are projected to win their conference. It's Oregon is the number 1 overall seed, followed by Texas, BYU, and Miami. Those are the 4 Power 4 now conference winners or projected conference winners. The rest is where the intrigue comes into play. The 5 seed right now would be the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are ranked 2nd in the polls, but of course, they are not going to win their or not projected to win their conference as of now. They would take on number 12 Boise State at at Ohio State. By the way, all of these first-round matchups will be on campus from the higher seed. The 6th seed Penn State is scheduled to take on 11 seed Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, yeah.
Number 7 seed is the Indiana Hoosiers, the undefeated Indiana team. They would take on number 10 Alabama, and then the 8-9 matchup would be Tennessee and Notre Dame. So some of the teams just outside of the top 12 include Georgia, SMU, Texas A&M, K-State, Colorado, and then a couple of teams with 2 or 3 losses in the mix, and then Army, of course, who is 9-0.
Yeah, we will. Uncle Jamie's college football locks of the week is tomorrow. It's our chance to talk a little college football. I got to give Deion Sanders a lot of credit because his obituary was being written before the season. Remember, they started off fast last year and then they totally fell apart. So you looked at their schedule this year, looking at it from last year's perspective, and it's like, wow, they may not win more than a couple games. No, man, like Colorado is Shedeur Sanders might be the first pick in the draft. Travis Hunter's going to be a top pick as well. And Deion's done a great job navigating it.
Their 2 losses this year came to Nebraska early when Nebraska was playing some good football, and Dylan Raiola was like the talk of the town. Yeah. And they lost to Kansas State, who's a good football team.
Yeah.
And other than that, we were talking about it yesterday on the Penn State show. Colorado's final 3 remaining games are against sub-500, 3 sub-500
teams. They should win all 3
in the Big 12. It's Oklahoma State, it's Kansas, and I believe it is I forget who the third team is, but
I saw the same thing. Yeah, they should be in the playoff.
And Utah. If Colorado gets to the Big 12 championship game, it's going to be them and BYU in the Big 12 championship game. It's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Tyler, thank you. Devon's going to join us coming up here in a second, but let's first talk about our friends at Glatt Hair Restoration. I'm actually headed up there. Gonna have to go to a Starbucks or something and do some work because Dr. Ken Morgenstern, the renowned plastic surgeon, is now with Glatt Hair Restoration, and he's coming over to the office in Ballard Kinwood. We're going to do some content, but listen, if you look at the hair right now, how's it looking? Looking all right? It's not looking bad, right? Yeah, my hair wouldn't look like this. I'd have a shaved head right now. I'd be wearing a hat or something like that, right? Glatt Hair Restoration really, it took care of it. And if you're thinking about your hair and hair loss and you're like, well, is it even worth it right now? All stages of hair loss, right? Whether you're like, hey, I really need hair restoration, or you're just starting to thin or shed, Glatt Hair has something for you. Leading edge treatments for prevention and restoration. So vitamin supplementation, which is really hot right out there right now with the thinning and the shedding, especially among women. Hair restoration, which I had done. PRP and stem cell restoration. And the TED treatment, which is non-invasive. And it's really helped me. When they take, every year I go in, you take a before picture and an after picture. I know everybody's initial reaction would be, oh, well, you want your after picture to look much better than the year before. No, because my hair looks good right now. The key is not to look any worse. So if your hair looks the same from one year to the next, you're doing your job, right? So that's what Glatt Hair Restoration is for you. One-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment, the most experience and the most success when it comes to hair restoration. That is Glatt Hair. You can call right now and speak to their hair team. 610-980-4000. Operators are standing by. 610-980-4000, or the website is glatthairmctr.com. That's GLAT hairmctr.com to get started. All right. Bet Parks Casino. Let's talk about it. By the way, I mentioned this before. Eagles 3.5-point favorites. The Sixers 10-point underdogs at home. Is this the game the Cavs they lose? They lose the undefeated streak. I don't know. But it's the one and only sportsbook app I would ever recommend. Bet Parks and the Bet Parks Sportsbook app, an online casino. Talking about Parks Casino, that's the casino choice for me. This is how you win. Pennsylvania's #1 casino right in the Philly burbs. The Excite Center. If you haven't seen a show there, amazing. One of the best places for concerts and comedy, and a great place to see the country's best comedians and music headliners. Tickets are on sale right now. Actor Richard Kind from Curb Your Enthusiasm, January 24th. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains in February. March 8th, magician Michael Carbonero. Ron White, comedian. Country star Lee Brice, March 22nd. And coming up here, it looks like tomorrow, Ezra Ray Hart, the lead singers from Sugar Ray, Better Than Ezra, and Tonic joined together for an incredible night. I think Tyler Zulli is going to be there because he's the biggest Sugar Ray fan in the building. Brett Michaels coming up on the 16th of November, and much, much more. Restaurants, unbelievable. Dinner and drinks before the show at Liberty Bell Gastropub. The Parks Grill Steakhouse, if you're looking for a high-end steak, is amazing. Bamboo Noodle House is great. ParksCasino.com. Buy tickets for all shows. ParksCasino.com. That's Parks Casino. This is how you win. You must be 21. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Well, there you go. Devon Givens, who there's many people in the business that I've known for a long time. But when you talk about day one kind of guys, Devon Givens is a day one guy. Once upon a time, my legal intern at 97.5 The Fanatic. And now look at him. An absolute superstar, as he's going to join us coming up here in a second. And that you're talking about coverage for the 76ers. There's not better coverage than what we have here at PHLY between Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck, Rich Hoffman Jr., and Devon Givens. And by the way, to keep up to date with everything on Philly sports and beyond, PHLY Daily, delivered directly to your mailbox every morning. I looked at it this morning. Rich Hoffman Jr. puts it together. It's amazing. It's really everything you need as a Philly sports fan. PHLY Daily. Just go to allphly.com, allphly.com. It's totally free, and it's totally delivered right to your inbox. Does Devon Givens still get a newspaper delivered to his door, or does he just go to allphly.com? What's up, D? How are you?
What's up, man? No newspapers delivered to the door at all, and I don't deliver them anymore either. So good.
Did you deliver newspapers at one point?
I did, yeah. Yep.
I did too, for a couple months.
I did longer than a couple of months, and it was tough.
Yeah, when you realize that you're like, hey, like it's here's why it was good. It was early in the morning, so you could do it, and it didn't interfere with anything else. But when it's cold out and you're needing to sort those papers and everything else, there's probably young people out there listening to us right now saying, huh? When you're a kid or as an adult, that was a job that you could get. Yeah, like for 6 months, I think I delivered newspapers, which was the Montgomery County Record for that.
Yes, it was fairly easy, except for the early morning, as you talked about. The fact that you had to get everything together when it was cold outside. It's really cold outside.
It's really cold outside.
Really
cold. Bob Cooney came cruising in here last week with the Daily News. He's like, "What's going on, Johnny Marks?" And I'm like, "Is that a newspaper in your hand, Bob?" But, he's a former writer.
Exactly.
Anyway, all right. The game last night was the game last night. Joel Embiid was rusty. Like, whatever. All right. And we'll talk about some of the stuff with the game because there are positives with this team right now, despite their record. But after the game, Joel Embiid and this is the problem, when you're emotional and you come out and you say, I'm not going to play in back-to-backs for the rest of my career, which is probably reality, or at least it's something they should consider. But then when you have to actually put it in the practice, here he wants to play the first back-to-back this season because he realizes how big the game is, and he sat out the first 9 games of the season. Now he probably wants to play, and he says he's going to push to play. Do you believe Joel Embiid plays tonight? And do you believe that back-to-backs? I believe Joel Embiid's going to play in back-to-backs this year. Not every one of them, but I think he plays in back-to-backs. But I guess it's so frustrating with everything else that we deal with from everything that's happened so far since training camp. And now Joel Embiid's a troll, and he's going to push to play in the back-to-backs. But what's your reaction to that part before we talk about the game?
Well, he's always been a troll. So that part he's maintained that part. That part is fine. When he announced this, John, months ago, we understood it. I understood. I'll speak for myself. I understood it and felt like, okay, I can see that. But the caveat to it was he's a competitor. So what's going to happen when he feels like playing, when he sees a situation where the team may have dropped a game or two, and there's a losing streak, and while he's not playing back-to-backs and he decides to play against Cleveland instead of playing against Charlotte on the second night of a back-to-back, but they lost the game before and he feels like they need it as a competitor, you're just going to want to play. You're going to want to play through it. And that's why he said that the medical staff, the coaching staff, they're probably going to have to curse him out a couple of times, just like he's going to have to curse them out a few times to fight back and push back on each other because of that competitive nature of him wanting to get out there on the floor. So to your point, I do believe he's going to play in some back-to-backs for that very reason. He's a competitor. Now, there may be some times where they have to minute restriction, see how it goes, see how the game is going, the flow of the game in general, and see where it takes them. The one good thing about what we saw last season, Johnny, was they were so good in the month of December into January, where he would get natural fourth quarters off because they were just blowing teams out. So I wonder how much of that, not tonight, not last night, not tonight, how much of that does come into play once the season gets underway, because if they do find their groove, find their stride like they did last season in December, which we're approaching, that those things will happen too, where it will also affect and dictate how those games go on those back-to-back nights.
Right. And we'll talk about that. I have one last thing on the troll. And I'm tired of Joel Embiid the troll, and he wasn't being a troll when he answered the question. He was being emotional.
I agree.
He's being emotional. Like Devon, at some point he needs to get off of this troll thing with trolling people on Twitter. But I don't think he was being a troll. At that point, we didn't realize that he wasn't going to be ready to start the season, and he was having real problems with the knee in training camp to where he missed the first however many games of the season. So he wasn't trolling to say that. He was trolling because his knee didn't feel good, and the doctors were probably telling him, hey, we're really going to have to manage you this year, and it's going to be tough for you to play in back-to-backs. So that's what he was feeling right there. He wasn't trolling. We know Joe's an emotional guy, and a lot of us connect with him because he does have that raw emotion. But, like, man, so now you open yourself up to Shaq, and Shaq last night, Shaq's talking, he's never going to win because of the back-to-back stuff or whatever. I don't know, man. Like, I'm just ready for Joel. He showed maturity. He has showed maturity. He's grown up. We've seen a level of professionalism from him in the last 2 years, but I'd like to see that last step to where he's not so worried about telling everybody how he's trolling.
Yeah, and for him, you wonder this too, Johnny, because of that, because of the troll part and being that guy who likes to have fun, and sometimes the emotion gets him in trouble, where if he says something like this, it gets him in trouble. It backfires on him because of the injury piece. If he doesn't say anything, we also see what happens where the team then gets fined because of how they handle the entire thing with the messaging and all of it. So it's always this give and take with him and them, that it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't sometimes with them. And if he just wins, if they just win, all of that stuff just goes away.
So true.
And that's where we are. That's where we have been for the last 8 years when he's been on the floor and having to deal with this entire thing. And then when you go out also and you have the USA experience that he had this summer, seeing him laboring up the floor from time to time in that setting, and not participating in training camp like you would hope he would, and not starting the season off, at least game one against Milwaukee, and then sitting a few games and coming back, all that stuff will go away. So at this point, it's just about just play basketball. Do what you can do. Go out there. You had a great off season with the team. The way it was put together around you, Tyrese Maxey, and now Paul George. The roster is solid, and let's see what it looks like. Go play basketball, and all of this other stuff will go away until we get to April, of course.
Right, and then it all comes back when they lose in the second round of the playoffs again. All right, so Nick Nurse, I'm a little bit confused, and like Tyler had said this earlier, it's really difficult when Paul George is injured to start the season. Now you've lost Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid's not ready to go, and he's not playing. But I'm still trying to he's still trying to figure out his combinations. The Paul George minutes restrictions. Like if you look at the box score, I think he had 32 minutes last night. It's just weird how he's using them. He brought him in the fourth quarter when it felt like, well, the Knicks just had their run. You should have had him in there a couple minutes earlier. Now you're bringing him in. You're down 14. Evaluate Nick Nurse so far this year. They're 2-8. They're staring down the barrel of 2-9 with the Cavs coming into town. How do you think he's done so far?
So I think last season, Johnny, I pointed out last season because of the Maxey injury where he was out for a month. Embiid was out for 2.5, almost 3 months.
Yep.
And you didn't have that third star like you do here with Paul George. So I didn't give him an incomplete last season, but I made sure that when we evaluated Nick Nurse, that I pointed out every time that I like him as a coach. I like him a lot as a coach. He never had his full roster. And for a significant stretch of time. And then at the end of the season, they won the 8 games going to the postseason, but they had to go through the play-in tournament. Joel Embiid gets re-injured in the Knicks series. And as great as he is, he goes and he does what he does, averaging 30 points while Maxey is doing his piece, and you don't get enough help from anyone else, and you lose in 6. In this case, Tyler's right. Didn't have Embiid and George to start. Tyrese Maxey was a little overwhelmed from all the attention that he was getting as the number 1 guy. And it's not entirely his fault because, again, as I keep saying, and I'll say it again, you're asking other guys to go up a level from what they're not supposed to be doing.
Right.
You're not asking Caleb Martin to take 16 shots a night and win a game. Same thing with Kelly Oubre. Unless he's rolling, you're not asking that. And then you're inserting Guerschon Yabusele, who has been fantastic, and asking him to do a little bit more than you expected in his early part of his career. So saying all that to say, to get back to Nick Nurse, on the West Coast trip, I didn't think he did that great of a job. Charlotte, I thought he did much better, and they wound up winning that game. And you bring up the Paul George minute restriction. You saw it even in that game where that was a winnable game and they desperately needed one, Johnny, and they got it, but they needed overtime. And it was with him sitting on the bench, and you need the heroics of Jarrett McCain and Kyle Lowry and some rebounds and some steals at the end to get it done. And I just like you said about Joel Embiid, when you started this conversation, I want to see Nick Nurse with his full complement of players and full complement of a roster. Now, we can evaluate him through the 10 games because they're 2-8. Part of it's on him. Yeah. But it's not, of course, it's not entirely on him because how is he supposed to win? And I said it after one of those games in the first 4 or 5, maybe 5th or 6th game, somewhere around there. Like, this is a lottery team if it's just Tyrese Maxey and the guys behind him. That's it. And now you get these other players back. So Nick Nurse has been just okay. And I would like to be able to evaluate him with a full complement of his entire personnel.
Yeah. We better get a chance for that. I think Oubre
have to.
Yeah, I think Oubre is your best example of a guy that really needs the full complement of players to be the player we saw last year. If he's got to step up, he hasn't been great this year. Running short of time here, so I wanted to get to something positive, which is Jared McCain, who,
yes, sir.
I mean, we were having conversations about he may not even be a part of the rotation to start the season because you have veteran guards and he may not be ready. He's only 20 years old. Meanwhile, he steps in for Maxey, and man, he is really, really good. He's confident. Defensively, he's better than I thought he was going to be. He's not afraid of the moment. He's not timid for being 20 years old. He's out there. It's like he's as aggressive on TikTok as he is on the court. Man, so like you look at it and you say like, all right, Maxey, McCain on the floor at the same time. All right, might be a little bit undersized, but I think Paul George and Embiid behind him can really help that. See, now you're really starting to see how this team gets into their run during the season. I've been extremely impressed with McCain so far. How about you?
Yeah, I have been too. If he plays like that and they win the game, he can make as many TikToks as he wants because it's turned into some positive results, and it's going to get everybody off his back for that reason. But no, Johnny, even at the draft, man, we all agreed as a panel, from us 3 to Rich there that night, that Dalton Knecht should have been the pick at pick number 17 once, or 16 or 17, whenever, once Knecht had fallen. But when the pick did happen and they didn't take him, I had to pat myself on the back for this one, where I was like, hey, guys, let's relax. This guy's okay. He can play basketball. But I didn't expect this early. I didn't expect him to play this many minutes this early. I didn't expect him to be impactful like he has been this early. And I didn't expect him to hurdle over 2 veterans like Eric Gordon and even Reggie Jackson and take their minutes right away this early. Now, would this have happened had they had, again, a full healthy roster? Probably not. He might not have gotten this opportunity. But that's one of the 2, including Yabusele, of the bright spots, at least in this tough start of the season, where you get those two guys, you see what they are, and then John, it just helps you out later down the line. Where he's going to hit a slump where we're talking about, all right, maybe he does need to go take a break, go down to the G League, get a couple of games in there, and come back up here and get his legs back underneath him. He's going to have that rookie wall, if you will, where he's not playing well, and we're talking about him needing to come off the floor. But this is going to probably bode well for him and the team later on, because Nick Nurse will have a better sense of where he could use him with Maxey and with Embiid, as you said. And you saw it last night on the defensive end, where he got beat a couple of times, and Joel Embiid comes out of nowhere, cleans it up, pins it off the glass, and they're live ball going the other way and doing his thing. And I appreciate what he said after the game on the offensive end too, of, man, it's so easy. It's simple. Go around the screens, dribble handoffs. I'm shot ready. I know how to get these shots off. He's relocating when the ball is in Joel Embiid's hands or his other teammates to find an open spot to get a good look. And that's exactly what he did last night. I loved his answer last night where he said it. He explained it, and then he said, it's really simple. And that's what it was. So I've been pleasantly surprised with his play so far.
And he's been good. And you get when you get the Embiid handoffs, it brought me back memories of JJ Redick.
Curry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He appears to be a weapon. I'll be curious to see what him and Maxey look like on the floor at the same time, right? Like, because Maxey sometimes can struggle based on who he's out there with, or can change his game a little bit because he maybe will defer occasionally. But I mean, so that's the positive. That's the exciting stuff right there. And by the way, with McCain, I'm all for the TikTok stuff. I know it annoys a lot of people, but he's a positive young man that is really like, he's got $1 million smile. He brings good energy to the team. So I'm all for the TikTok stuff, even though I don't do the TikTok stuff. I leave that to Violations Greg. And do you do the dances on TikTok or no? That's not you.
I do not. No. And I have the daughters who are in that age range, and they're like, Dad, come on, let's do this TikTok. I'm like, nah, go ahead, you got it.
No, you're good. All right, so Devon Givens' first appearance on the show, and that is not because I don't love you, Devon. It's because every time we reach out, the cuz already has you booked.
Yeah.
So I made sure I reached out early, and I'm like, let's get Devon tomorrow. Let's see if he's booked. So thank you for coming on. It's good to see you, buddy.
It's good to see you too. It's my brother for everybody. So yeah, I'll be on here many more times this season for sure.
All the time. What's you do pregame and postgame again tonight?
Yeah, so tonight, pregame for the Cleveland Cavaliers game, postgame as well. So I think it's a 7:30 game once again. So 7 o'clock pregame ahead of the Cavs and the Sixers, and we'll see if George and Embiid are playing. And hope they are. Actually, hope they are, Johnny.
All right, Devon. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, man. See you.
All right, there he is, Devon Givens, PHLY, Sixers. Why? The Sixers. All right, we'll finish up with some Phillies conversation here, but we got to talk about our good friends at Ace. That's right, Ace Hardware Home Services. If you have a leaky pipe, you got something going on with your house, right? Well, they got something for you. Heater issue. Trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services. Yeah, you go there because you need stuff for your house. I do it as well. But a wide range of residential maintenance, installation, and home repair services are available. That includes plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. Free estimates on equipment, installation, emergency services available for when you need us most. So think about it, right? It's always good when you're a homeowner or whatever, when they're like, all right, well, who's your plumber? Who's your electrician? Who comes out for your HVAC? Ace Hardware Home Services takes care of all of that for you. So go to the website, acehardwarehomeservices.com. And again, emergency services. What happens when your toilet's overflowing on a Sunday? Who do you call? You don't call Ghostbusters. You call Ace Hardware Home Services. Service you can trust and satisfaction is guaranteed. They will make it right no matter what. Free estimates. A wide range of maintenance and installation stuff. Ace Hardware Home Services, the power of the Ace brand. They strive to be the best, most trusted provider of home preservation services. AceHardwareHomeServices.com. All right, Rite Aid. All right, I feel like this is where we keep score of what's going on in my house with sickness. My wife has a bad cough and a cold. My middle daughter had a low-grade fever last night. She's all right this morning. but she's coughing and has a stuffy nose. My youngest daughter is feeling better today, but she still has a little bit of a cold. That's right. That's why I'm at Rite Aid all the time. But did you know that you can get a flu shot at Rite Aid? All right. While you're at the pharmacy, you also get the latest COVID-19 vaccine and stay up to date on all your others. You can ask your pharmacist for a vaccine review or recommendations because the CDC recommends getting a flu shot every year. A person's immune protection from vaccine declines over time. So help yourself against the flu by getting your annual flu shot at Rite Aid. And every year, the flu is a little bit different. It's constantly changing. So get your annual flu shot formulated to help protect against this year's expected flu strains. Flu vaccines do not protect against COVID, and COVID vaccines do not prevent the flu. So you can get both at the same time. And then while you're at Rite Aid, stock up on cough, cold, flu, and allergy essentials. Rite Aid has what you need to get through the season. And they have deals. I love the deals. Even if I don't use the products, I feel like I win if I get a good deal. Just walk into your local Rite Aid today, like I go to my Royersford Rite Aid, or schedule at riteaid.com. State, age, and health restrictions apply. Ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for details. Or is it details? What do you use, Tyler? Details or details?
I am a details guy, not details.
How do you pronounce either health or auto? It's something that you have for your health.
Insurance.
Not insurance.
No, insurance.
It's insurance.
Yeah.
It's a Midwest thing to say insurance. I say insurance. They say insurance. It's odd. Like Mike Golick used to say insurance. I don't know why I remember that.
Okay.
Instead of insurance. Anyway, yes. There you go. All right. So Tyler, yesterday the PHLY Phillies crew, they were stirring the pot with some potential trades, and would you trade this prospect? Would you trade that prospect?
Hold on.
What?
Jamie stirs the pot.
Well, isn't he a part of the PHLY Phillies crew?
That's true. Fair point.
All right. So, but it's a good thing because where the Phillies are this offseason, as free agency is very, very much a part of it, is that they have some pretty good prospects.
Yeah.
And Dave Dombrowski isn't known to be a guy that values the prospects and says, well, we can't trade our farm system. No, Dave Dombrowski, he's not going to be here in 5 years. So he doesn't give a damn about a prospect or two if it means he's setting his team up right now to win a World Series. So you guys had put out a poll about, like, all right, well, which prospects would you trade? Or, like, what is the ranking of the prospects that you would trade?
Yeah.
So I had retweeted it and commented, and I got a ton of conversation. I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of Phillies thirst out there to talk about this kind of stuff. And then it's come out, and you've seen a lot of rumors, and you've seen a lot of talk. And sometimes with rumors, you're like, okay, well, that's a Scott Boras rumor. It's put out there through Nightingale or who's the other Heyman.
Yeah, there's mouthpieces for these high profile agents, and I think there's mouthpieces for the GMs too.
Sure, yeah, it goes both ways. Information's put out there for a reason, but what's come out here recently in like the last, the 72 hours or so is that the Phillies are very much interested in Garrett Crochet of the White Sox. And I believe this because Ken Rosenthal reported this after the trade deadline. The Dodgers and the Phillies were both hot to get him at the trade deadline, but they wouldn't give up Andrew Painter. And the Dodgers wouldn't give up a couple of their higher end prospects. So the White Sox said, wisely so, by the way, the White Sox said, we'll wait till the offseason. They're going to trade him this offseason.
Yeah,
they're going to trade him soon. It's a matter of where he goes. And it's a matter of what the Phillies are willing to give up. So he's not even their top prospect anymore because MLB.com came out with Aiden Miller as the Phillies' new number one top prospect, and Andrew Painter is second. I would not trade Andrew Painter in a deal for him, but I would pretty much trade anybody else that they have as far as prospects. So now it becomes, are you trading prospects for a guy that is ready-made and pitching now and is still under club control for the next 2 years? So that's one rumor that's out there. The other one is, and Buster Olney was putting this out last night, he tweeted out the most interesting prediction heard from a rival evaluator. The Phillies land Alex Bregman. His swing translates in that park, strong defense, lots of postseason scar tissue. 7 years, So then I had kind of looked up and said, well, what's he going to cost? Because he's a free agent. You're looking at probably like 7 years, 180, 190 million, something like that. Third baseman makes a lot of sense, but that means you're trading Alec Bohm if you're going to bring him in here.
Yeah, so I think that was the rumor was that Alec Bohm was on the trade block, and he was one of, we talked about it a couple times. I think you and I have discussed it. I know that Jamie and Renee and I have talked about it. I think there's 3 players that the Phillies could conceivably look to move that are, they use the phrase like shake up, who could help shake up this team. And I think there's 3 players that they could conceivably move. Alec Bohm is one of them, and I think Alec Bohm is probably the most valuable of the 3. The other 2 are Brandon Marsh and Ranger Suarez. And I'm not so sure that Brandon Marsh ends up getting moved after all, but this conversation ends up allowing kind of maybe things to naturally fall into place in the Alec Bohm discussion, because I did not think that they would be players on Alex Bregman. And the reason I didn't think that they would be players on Alex Bregman was because of the monetary value that he is going to command in free agency. You and I were talking about it before the show starts. This is a very top-heavy free agent class. There's a lot of really, really good players. Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Roki Sasaki's name is now in the mix. Yeah. Alex Bregman's one of the elite players up there. There's a pretty substantial drop-off between the really good players and everybody else. Guys are going to get overpaid. Values are going to be overinflated. Teoscar Hernandez is going to get a ton of money. Anthony Santander is going to get a ton of money. If the Phillies are players in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, then the natural progression would be to trade Alec Bohm for what I would perceive to be a starting outfielder.
Correct.
Or a middle-of-the-rotation starter. I think the outfielder more prevalent than the rotation guy. But if they do move Alec Bohm for a starting outfielder, you've now, I would say, probably gone up a step from Bohm to Bregman. I don't know how substantial, but a step. And, I think better defense, right? And, the power is there. There's no doubt. And then you've gotten better in the outfield, whether it be in left field and Marsh moves to center, or it's in center field and Marsh stays in left and he probably plays a position that's a little bit more natural to him defensively. You probably got better at 2 positions if you were to sign Bregman and then move Bohm for a starting outfielder.
Right. I mean, Bregman's 31, I believe. So you're getting older, which I know I've seen a lot of Phillies fans say, well, you need to get younger. You don't need to get older. No, this team actually right now is built to win. They're all in for the next 2 years. So at the end of this, when it's over and Trey Turner's still under contract and maybe Bregman's still under contract for a number of years, it's going to get ugly. It could get ugly for a couple of years, just like after the Phillies, after all Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rollins and all those guys got old. It could get ugly here, but Dave Dombrowski very much realizes his window to win this year and next year. And it's closing if you stand pat.
Wasn't that kind of always the thought process, though? Like, you signed Bryce Harper to a double-digit year contract. You signed Trey Turner to a double-digit year contract. Your big-name players are going to be here into their high 30s and some into their 40s. The thought process that these contracts at some point down the line, 2030, 2032, whatever the case may be, the thought process was that they might become albatross contracts at some point over the course of their tenure with the Phillies. The trade-off and the payoff was you were going to bring these guys into your locker room. It was the only way you were going to bring them into your locker room, and you were going to have an immediate ability to win a World Series. Now, they've competed for a World Series. Last year was probably the furthest it felt from being a World Series team come playoff time. But they get to the World Series. They go to a Game 7 in the NLCS. Now, granted, they probably should have gone back to the World Series. I think we can all attest to that. But the point being is those back-end years 9, 10, 11, 12 of some of those contracts are the trade-off for years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those contracts. And I think you deal with that when the time comes.
Yeah, you
put yourself in a position to win.
Well, and that's probably why Bregman gets – because they're trying to make – the reason you give all those years is you're trying to make the average annual salary less so
Correct,
you can fit it in and there's not the salary cap implications or whatever.
And we continue to talk about Harper's contract, which is continuing to look better and better as the years go on. Like, what's he going to get next year? I think it's like $25-ish million.
Yeah, his average million. His AAV, I think, goes up a little bit, but to your point, he's not making 40. So he's not making 30.
My point is, like, all right, so he's projected to make $27.5 million next year. How much money does Teoscar Hernandez get in free agency? Does he get 25?
More than that.
Does he get 25 a year? I mean, you're talking
Similar.
about, does Santander get 25 a year? Maybe
Similar.
more. You're talking about these contracts that continue to get inflated and inflated. Harper's contract looks better and better as the years go on. Now, at some point, that bell curve is going to come back down, and you're going to be paying a guy $27 million to play 100 games. But that's not, you're not talking about
who cares about that? Like you
future.
said, Dave Dombrowski's going to be in Nashville or he's going to be in a retirement community somewhere.
Right.
All right. He doesn't give a damn. And you know what? I don't either. It'll be tough to go through, but who cares about that? All right. So here's my question. And I think Bregman is a great idea. Doesn't it feel like that there's a level of annoyance from the Phillies regarding Alec Bohm and his immaturity? Because I don't know if you're going to get the same value that he gave you the first half of last year. He was very productive. He had a good year, but by the end of the season, like it just feels like that they're ready to move on because they realize like they're better off with a Bregman than a Bohm at this point. Even though Bohm should be a player that's still ascending, the Phillies obviously feel a certain way about Alec Bohm if they're ready to move on at this point.
Sure. And I think you probably, the Alec Bohm that you maybe want to expect is somewhere in between.
Right.
Somewhere in between the first half and the second half Alec Bohm. First half Alec Bohm, as you mentioned, was an all-star, a doubles machine, an RBI machine, was put in a lot of spots and delivered in a lot of spots. Second half Alec Bohm was injured, had some, moments of immaturity and slamming the helmet and things like that. And, really kind of putting himself maybe in a bad state to play the game at a level that they needed him to play the game at. I think if you can expect somebody an Alec Bohm somewhere in between where he does hit in the 270 range, he's always going to be a high doubles guy, not going to be a huge power, a power guy. I think the 20 is his cap. If you get 15 to 20, you're in a good spot for a full year. But if you get a guy who hits 40 doubles and drives in 85 or 90 and hits 270, that's a productive player. Now, granted, the RBI situation it's kind of beholden on his teammates to get on base, no matter whom he plays for, because of the fact that he doesn't have a lot of pop. But you got a guy who's an average defender who's made himself a better defender, but he's probably about an average defender, and he's good bat to ball skills, good gap skills, with limited power upside. But there's a player there that teams would want under the guise that maybe he does a little bit of growing up.
Not making a ton of money. I forget.
No, and that's the thing. He's going to probably get about $11 million this season. He's got arbitration this year. He's got arbitration 3 next year. You don't have to worry about a massive contract extension until the 2020. You got him for 2 more years off season.
Yeah, you got him for 2 more years. Same with and that's and I believe doesn't. Well, Rangers. You talk about Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez is a free agent after this.
Ranger has won. This is his final year of arbitration.
So he very easily could be moved as well. All right. So Tyler, let me ask you. All right, would you be willing? It feels like there's going to be a trade. Would you agree that it feels like the Phillies are ready to make a trade? And I'm not talking about just Bohm. I'm talking about they're looking to trade a prospect to get somebody in here.
Well, I certainly think that there is a trade to be made. I would be. It depends on again which prospect you're referring to.
Who would you trade for? Who's your number one target?
Right now, this offseason? I would have to. It's a left fielder, or it's an outfielder with offensive productivity. I would have to probably dive into whom I'm looking for.
So an outfielder,
because the free agent market stinks. We talked about left field yesterday. We're talking about center field today. The free agent market is not very good outside of like the upper echelon guys like the Hernandez and the Santanders that I don't think they're going to be players for.
All right. Would you be willing to trade their number one prospect, Aiden Miller?
Not particularly, no.
No, you would not trade him.
No.
Is there a deal to be made?
Sure. I mean, there's always a deal to be made. Like, speaking of Andrew Painter, for example, if Detroit, for some weird reason, was like, hey, we want Painter and, Bohm for Tarek Skubal, you're running to the phone to make that happen, right? It's not going to. But my point is there are starters that you would move Painter for, and there's starters you would move Miller for, but it's a pretty high-level player.
Right. Hey, and we appreciate all of you watching on TV. So head on over to allphly.com for more of the show, or, get to YouTube, but go to allphly.com to watch more of the show. And we'll finish up here with some Phillies talk. Yeah, so Aiden Miller is their top prospect. He's their former number one overall pick. He slipped because he had an injury. He had that hamate bone. When you break that,
right,
on your hand, it takes away from pretty much all power that you're going to have, and it's tough to come back from too. And he last year he had a good year as a prospect, but what scouts are seeing is they're like, wow, he's projecting with a lot of raw power. So he plays shortstop right now. He's probably better suited to be your third baseman.
I think he's a third baseman. Yeah,
right. But then if you're signing Bregman, where's Bregman playing?
Well, Bregman his agent did say he has a willingness to move to second, and then you're talking about
Miller could probably also play second too.
Sure,
but I've seen a lot of people, and it's just not the people that tweet me and want to fight with me about this. I've also seen it a lot, and I look around a lot for what people are saying about the Phillies, and there's this growing sentiment among Phillies fans is don't trade Miller, keep him, and he's going to play this year for the Phillies. Like, he is on track, he's on target. Maybe by the middle of the season, he could be a starter, or 2026 he could be a starter. Everybody, let's just calm down with Aiden Miller playing in the majors this year. He has not a handful, but he has like 150 some at bats above high A in Double A last year. He didn't particularly have he didn't have a great season. He was fine. He was good. He's their number one prospect for a reason. But he's 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 till June. So I know everybody gets excited about prospects. I do as well. All right. And he's a good prospect. He's not likely to play for a playoff contending team, a World Series contending team next year. You're not going to bring him up to be a bench player unless there's an injury. Like when Johan Rojas came up, he wasn't expected to come up. That was out of desperation. And that's because he's good defensively and he has speed. He wasn't ready at the plate. So Miller, like, at some point he's going to be up. Maybe it's 2026. Stop acting like he's going to play and expecting he's going to play next year. He's not. He's not.
No, I don't think there should be any expectation for him to be a major league player next year. He's ascended quickly and has succeeded in most of the stops that he's played at, he's been a part of. At Clearwater, he was tremendous, over 400 on base percentage. Jersey Shore, he played well, was 350. He struck out a little bit more at Jersey Shore, but basically a strikeout per game number, but the average dipped a little bit. But the productivity was there. He's probably going to start the year in Reading, would be my guess. I don't expect them to send him back to Jersey Shore.
No, he's going to, you're right. He's going to start the year in Reading. And if he excels and he's killing Double-A pitching, they'll send him up to Triple-A for sure.
I don't envision a scenario in which, unless he's just absolutely eviscerating Double-A and Triple-A pitching, them putting him on the 40, because he's not on the 40 right now and he doesn't have to be on the 40 right now. And I don't think he has to be on the 40 for another 2 seasons.
If he's in the majors this year, it's a bad thing, and I would be shocked.
Well, I don't necessarily think it has to be a bad thing. It could be that he's just unreal in AAA, but I think the likelihood is he plays a bulk of the season in Reading, probably gets a handful of time in AAA towards the end of the year if he's playing particularly well. You'll see him in spring training in 2026. And maybe there's an outside chance he makes the 2026 roster, but it's probably more likely you're looking at a call up late 2026 or sometime in 2027.
Yep. And then,
and by the way, that's okay.
Yeah, that would actually be fine. That would be on target. Again, he doesn't turn 21 till June. He didn't, when he went up to Double-A last year, he didn't hit 350 to where you're kind of thinking about, like, do we start him in Double-A and then we bring him up to Triple-A pretty quick? Right? You're not doing that. This isn't an Andrew Painter type thing. Andrew Painter dominated the minors. Aaron Nola dominated the minors. He was also a college pitcher. Cole Hamels dominated the minors. That's how these younger players come up when they're really young. Albert Pujols dominated the minors. That's why he was playing in the majors at a very young age. He's not doing that. Justin Crawford also I've seen a lot of fans saying, well, Justin Crawford could be an answer in the outfield. I think Justin Crawford is a good prospect. But again, I mean, he has a 70% ground ball rate last year. He's still got a lot of work to do in the minors before you think about bringing him up. Now, he's probably closer to the majors if there was major injuries or things like that coming up. But still, like, I can't look at the Phillies prospects right now outside of a couple of pitchers and say, hey, they could help the big club in 2025. That shouldn't be the expectation. If it ends up happening, great. That means that either there's major injuries or they've really excelled. But, like, these are prospects for a reason. And I'd be willing to trade almost all of them to get the right player this offseason. Minus Andrew Painter. He's the one that I'm not trading. But everybody else is pretty much in. Tait. Eduardo Tait is another one. All right. Tomorrow's a football Thursday. How about that? Short week. Birds and Commanders Thursday Night Football right here in Philly. We'll bring you a great Football Thursday show. Shout out to everybody out there. If you're watching live on YouTube or you're watching later on YouTube, smash that subscribe button on PHLY Sports. Like, comment. The podcast is posted every day shortly after 9 o'clock. If you're listening to the audio-only podcast, Tyler gets it up there. And subscribe, comment, give us a 5-star review, all that jazz. And follow us on social medias at Jon, Jon Marks, Marks Media. Email me, johnmarksmedia@gmail.com. And we'll talk to you tomorrow live at 8 a.m. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.